Hello, my name is Miranda Brenneman, and today we'll be looking at the impact the incorporation of the kinetic chain has on shoulder elevation exercises. So, a little bit of background information on shoulder elevation exercises. These are typically used in order to help increase the weaker muscles that we often discriminate in everyday scapular activities, as well as helping to create smaller activation and muscles that tend to hyperactivate. So, this means that we are using all the trapezius muscles, and a strategy that can also be added in order to possibly enhance the influence of scapular muscle activity levels can possibly be the implementation of the kinetic chain. This leads us to our research. This research is the incorporation of the kinetic chain into shoulder elevation exercises. And does it ultimately really affect scapular muscle activities? This was done through the Journal of Athletic Training, and this research was used by conducting a cross sectional study to help influence the kinetic chain in 5 variation shoulder elevation exercises of the scapular muscle activities. And this was done with 31 participants, 16 being female and 15 being men. And these were done with people of the 22 age group. So, what are some of the methods that were being conducted throughout the study? So, these use electromyographic activity of the middle, upper, as well as the lower trapezius. The electromyographic activity of the centurious anterior was also used, but this was only done in the 5 variation where the bilateral elevation with external rotation was being conducted. Also, furthermore, two reflective markers on each lateral side of the dominant upper arms were also being tracked, as well as high speed cameras were being used in order to help track the direction of motion and movement during these exercises. So, the data and the results. In the study, it was found that having an open hand position rather than a closed hand resulted in an increase in middle trapezius and lower trapezius activities. So, using these closed hand activities had no benefit, but once they had used open hand positioning, we see how the kinetic chain had a more of a response to our middle trapezius and lower trapezius muscles. However, the results showed that adding lower limb exercises increase our trapezius activities. So this was seen with that sertorius anterior because the most activity that was conducted through this activity was when there was an elevation in the static unipedal squat position. So this shows how you adding lower limb through the kinetic chain increased our upper trapezius activities. So based on this article, there is no standard kinetic chain for each shoulder elevation exercises. So this means that our middle, lower, and upper trapezius have different kinetic chains that need to be used in order to help activate those muscles. So depending on what part of the trapezius the subject tends to discriminate against, they could implement either the lower limb or the open hand positioning to help increase their preferred activation. So, real world applications. So, where can we use these exercises? So, we can use these exercises at physical therapy sessions, at your gym, and the comfort of your own home. If you happen to know what muscle you tend to discriminate against, which is probably one of these trapezius muscle groups in your scapular activities, you can take matters into your own hands by implementing while performing shoulder elevation exercises. So the kinetic chain had a really positive effect on our upper trapezius, lower trapezius, and middle trapezius. So depending on which one you discriminate against, using an open hand positioning or even including your own lower limbs can positively affect your scapular muscles. So that is the end of my presentation. So this is the reference, the incorporation of the kinetic chain into shoulder elevation exercises, and this was done through the Journal of Athletic Training.